going to be talking about creative tension this morning and also spiritual tension. But before I get into it, and I do want this to be recorded for our YouTube experience, I just wanted to bring up once again, like I did last Sunday, about our new blog. We launched a new blog last Sunday. I'm very excited about the success it's showing. We're actually receiving comments. What's so wonderful to me, and this was one of the purposes of setting the blog, this particular blog up, was to enable people to share their experiences. Not just to quote the books to make us sound important and knowledgeable, but to take those quotes that we all have, you know, our favorite quotes from the teachings, and we're living these quotes, and to be able to share the livingness of these quotes to show what it means to live a transformational life. I know there was a couple of comments posted yesterday about hearing that silent voice within, and what happened when they listened and what happened when they didn't listen, and in listening how it sent them, you know, on their path. And it's anyway, I'm so excited about the blog. So if you haven't been there, if you haven't registered, this is how you get there. Here's the URL. It's www.wmea-world.org, and then simply a / and you write the word blog. And that takes you right directly to the blog. The blog is beautiful. The website for the blog is absolutely incredibly beautiful. And across the top, it enables you to go right directly to like our Zodiac newsletter, to Meditation Monthly International, something else, I don't remember what the other thing, YouTube. So that you don't have to wind your way to get there. You can just go directly right from that website to those, you know, offerings that we share. And then you have an opportunity to register. But what you want to make sure is on the right-hand side of the menu, it gives you an opportunity to say, yes, please send me comments. Let me subscribe to the commentary section. Otherwise, chances are you won't ever go back to the blog again. So what happens when somebody posts, then it comes into your email. And then you can reply from your email. But I really, really suggest every once in a while to go to the actual blog website itself, because it's, you know, you can see and read everybody else's comments, and it's very inspiring. Okay, so that's the announcement. Okay. Creative tension is the result of following our inner guidance. It's the result of following that inner guidance, of following that sometimes not so quiet, small voice. Sometimes it's a very loud voice. Sometimes it doesn't whisper. Sometimes that voice speaks just like I am speaking. It's just like you can hear someone audibly talking, but it's in your ear. You know, nobody else is going to hear it, but you hear it. That creates creative tension. It means that we are following. When we respond to that inner voice, it means that we are following our essential divinity. And this essential divinity, we can, as we understand in the teachings, recognize this is our true north. We are headed in the right direction. When we follow our true north, what happens is we have a strong sense of direction. We're no longer pondering, should I go to the left or to the right or below or above? We just know what that strong direction is. Now, because of the chaos in the world, the loud noises going on in the world, subjectively and objectively, sometimes we do have to sit and quiet ourselves to really hear that voice. But my own experience has been the more you listen to the voice, the more you can trust it. And the more you trust it, then the more you're going to follow it. And the more you trust and follow it, the more frequent that voice will sound itself to you. This direction is a key note which contains the frequency of our essential divinity. It is not conditioned by any outside influences, nor by knowledge or wealth or power. The magnetic energies of our true north comes from our inner guidance. So our inner guidance is actually creates a magnetic sphere around us, and this magnetic sphere then becomes like a homing device. It reminds us of our eternal values, of the highest vision that we can actually contemplate. This is the power that we have within us. When we discover this hidden treasury, we become more active in the subjective life as opposed to the outer life. We no longer allow the loud noises and the intimidating voices and the I know it all people to direct our life. This is our potential. This is our possibility. But humanity at this stage in its consciousness is still very ignorant, of the potential each one of us has. And so it believes that the outer world, and all the people that constitutes the outer world, such as our advertising executives, our politicians, the politicians that we are also angry at, and all those people, so many, not all, but so many of those people in power, we're so used to hearing their voices that it's like they have hypnotized our nature in such a way that we imitate them and not even knowing that we're imitating their actions and their behaviors and their beliefs and their philosophical system. That philosophical system is nothing but the history of the past. It has nothing to do with words coming from their inner guidance that they're going to share with the rest of it. It's their opinions, it's their concrete mind. And the more power they have, the more money they have, the more prominent their position, the more we follow them. We as a humanity follow them. But the minute we ourselves begin to recognize and trust and have the ability to follow this true guidance, not our fictitious guidance, not our egotistical guidance, not guidance that we're pretending is coming from within, but which is really directed from our desires and our opinions. This is a true, pure inner guidance. And this guidance has to prove itself. We have to follow it first. And then if we recognize it's misdirecting us, then we know it's not that inner voice. What's so incredibly wonderful is that for several incarnations, we learn to follow this inner guidance. And it pretty much directs us with everything we do. Simple little things, like it's time to go out and get the mail now. Like, that seems stupid, but but I tend not to go out and get the mail. It's very dull mail. I get very dull mail. And so I just don't go out into the mailbox, to pick out the mail. Okay, so I'm walking around, go to the mailbox. This means I have to open up the garage door and go up the driveway, up the hill. And usually it's because the mailbox is full. And there may be a couple of boxes in there. And so out of respect to the postman, so our inner guidance doesn't have to be a monumental declaration, it can be something as simple as go out to the mailbox, Jolene, and get the mail. But we have to train ourselves to hear. Now, true north sounds a keynote that has a reverberation within our physical, emotional, mental nature that would otherwise be nearly absent under our heavy glamours and illusions and delusions. So this keynote, particularly in the beginning, this keynote can be heard in our moments of silence. So if you meditate every day, by now you should be hearing this keynote. That's creative tension. Creative tension is a result of following that inner voice, that inner guidance. Now, spiritual tension is the result of the rotation of the atoms that surround our human soul. So think of this. We actually, first of all, know we have a human soul, but now there is a stimulus that is occurring. These atoms which rotate around our soul. And the highest spiritual tension is the moment when the speed of these atoms increase to such a degree that all these atoms begin to function within a higher sphere of pressure. So here, if we want to put the pieces together, what I've said already, is we're realizing that true north sounds a keynote. As this keynote reverberates within our physical, emotional, mental bodies, it creates a magnetic sphere around us. This magnetism that surrounds us is like a homing device. Now, the magnetic sphere advances, it increases with higher and higher tensions as a result of us following our guidance. And the way it happens is because of these atoms that move very quickly surrounding the soul and increase in speed. When this occurs, we experience a higher sphere of pressure and receive and release a greater light from our soul. That's spiritual tension. So creative and spiritual tension work together. This keynote of our soul, and I'm going to say this again, is our homing device, what I'm calling a homing device. It's like the pigeon, I don't know what they go into that. Okay, the homing device. Now, to take the pigeon and put the pigeon over here, we're going to replace that little bird with will. Our homing device is will energy. Will energy that emanates from the flame of our true self. See how this is working together now? True north, true self, homing device, which is willpower. Will energy originates from the innermost core of ourselves. In other words, from our human essence. See, this is like a tapestry. We're taking this and this and this and this and creating this beautiful woven magic carpet, let's call it. And when this will energy is recognized and The will energy has to not only be recognized, but it has to be absorbed into the level of our life, any level of our life. If we're physically oriented, we have to absorb that will energy into all of our actions. If we are more emotionally polarized, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later, or mentally polarized, but eventually we become so integrated, these three vehicles become so integrated that this willpower increases in strength, which means our homing device increases in power, which means our magnetism has such a power that our sense of direction increases proportionally. When our soul identifies himself with this will energy, then wherever the identification is, tension is produced. This is true whether our focus is on the physical, emotional, or mental levels. So let's talk about the emotional level for a moment here. If our focus, if our level of consciousness is focused on that emotional level, or let's say our soul is focused on the emotional plane, then all aspiration and devotion and efforts, aspiration, devotion, and efforts of purification are the result of such tension. Okay? Okay. Are you sure? Okay. When our soul identifies himself with the will energy on the mental level, a powerful mental tension is produced. In this production, all dedication, intention, planning, and striving, all dedication, intention, planning, and striving toward a greater light is the result of this tension. This means to us that on each plane of our soul, our human soul, that on each plane we see greater beauty of the purpose, and thus the soul imposes greater discipline on our vehicles. This is an amazing science that most people are truly, truly incredibly ignorant about. But the greatest tension starts when we try to impart our vision to our family and to our friends and to our co-workers. And when we pass beyond the mental plane and experience even higher tensions. Planes such as the intuitional atmic monadic planes would be where we experience even higher tensions. Now, physically, when the tension is created in our physical etheric body, we feel the direction. This is the first moment we feel that direction of the keynote and our true direction, and we try to appropriate our physical life to that direction. This is the first major crisis that we have in our life. Now, if you're on the blogs, you can see how I've taken, the 3 posted blogs, these subject matter about transformational life, about crises, and about our essential divinity. I've given just little snippets on the blog, and here we're getting the details. What's highlighted in this blog, which means crises. This is what I posted yesterday for the first time, was crises. We read about great teachers, how they may have grown up in somewhere in Europe or the Middle East, and they're maybe 20, 25 years old, and in their growing up years they've attended monasteries and experienced mysterious gatherings in caves and They've spent a great portion of their lives in meditation, and then one day their teacher says, now you must move to another country. The teacher is reflecting, or let's say the teacher is sounding that keynote, which is true north, and they are assimilating it. That person is assimilating it physically, and they will immediately act upon it. It creates a crisis. So you see, a crisis is an opportunity. When you read about the life of Blavatsky, 150 years ago, what she went through, what she did, but she followed that true direction. Nobody and nothing, even a marriage, could not deter her from following that homing device. Anchoring herself in the willpower. Tension creates an awareness of our present physical conditions and the possible physical conditions of our future. It creates an awareness. Thus, a vision of a better physical condition will be revealed to us if we need it, challenging us to strive for it. Now, if our human soul is focused in the substance of that will energy, then the person is going to take action. But if that person's life is buried in their illusions and delusions and their glamours, and that light is still buried in the tomb of their being, then they may hear the inner guidance, but they will be overwhelmed with it and say, I can't do this. Sometimes this tension is created by our teacher or even a book. If that teacher or book is presenting a new vision for us, such tension can wipe away physical inertia or apathy. It's like, get in gear, right? Under this kind of tension, the person might decide to stop smoking, not to use alcohol, not to eat unhealthy food, not to waste their time, energy, and money, or this and that. See, now I won't have time to get into that. Never mind. It's just this whole litany of paragraphs that coming down in my brain. I'm saying, oh, great, let's talk. No, I can't do that because you have clock time here. So what happens when our soul is identified with will on the emotional plane? This is from the teaching. We try to watch our words. We try to control our expressions. We try to not live in fear and anger and jealousy. And instead, we try to be calm and sensitive and joyful and loving. And we aspire to greater beauty. This is what happens when our soul is identified with the will on our emotional plane. And finally, we will try to cultivate deeper joy. We will cultivate greater forgiveness, tolerance, and patience. See, these right now, for some of us, what I'm saying, these are just words. But as we begin to live the transformational life, these are no longer words, these are experiences. Okay. These are all qualities that we may be inspired with when our soul identifies with the will on the emotional plane. Now, all these disciplines put us under a great pressure, a pressure on our emotional body. But the energy and direction of our inner keynote will lead us toward greater accomplishments. The fire of the will is what causes transformation. It causes transformation in the atoms and cells of our nature. Now, a similar transformation comes into being in our emotional body. So we've gone from, let's say, the physical nature now that we've moved, or whatever that, revelationary experience was, and we followed that. We let our homing device follow that direction. Okay, now a similar transformation comes into being within our emotional body. When this occurs, this is very, very exciting. It seems like, dull. It's like, emotions, I'm in control of my emotions. But it has nothing, that's not transformation. What truly happens is our emotional body becomes filled by intuitional energy. In such a tension, our glamours slowly melt away, and the emotional body eventually turns into a clear mirror, reflecting the beauty of higher realities. So when we read in Symphony of the Zodiac that a very small percentage of people have built their emotional body, this is what it's referring to. We've not yet allowed the transformational energy of will on the emotional plane to clean out our glamours, allowing for a download of intuitional energy. The fire of the will causes transmutation in the mental plane. Transmutation in the mental plane. Transmutation is mostly concerned with the transference of force from the lower centers to the corresponding higher centers. Our mental atoms are energized and eventually replaced by atmic atoms. Now, some of you think if you're a woman, you can't be mental. Or if you're a man, you cannot be emotional because you're mental. But say, all of that is a facade when you are living a transformational life. This is what the whole process of integration is about. As if you're a woman and this intuitional energy starts pouring into your emotional body, it juxtaposes your soul eventually into the spiritual triad. And within this process, then that atmic permanent atom becomes so stimulated that you are functioning now with the mental permanent atom that is connecting with the atmic life, the atmic substance. I hope I'm not throwing you off with that, but just throwing some ideas out here for you to consider that you're not just an emotional person, or you're not just, a mental person. So, when our mental atoms are energized and replaced by atmic atoms, this creates greater striving, greater dedication, and one-pointed devotion to a great cause. Someone sent me a quote yesterday, a 3-paragraph quote from The Secret Doctrine about, I thought it was so weird. It was a beautiful quote, but it was talking about, the person said, I thought you needed to read this quote. And it was about dedicating your life to the spiritual path. Okay, well, thank you. There must be something in here to think about, and what am I to learn from it? I still haven't figured it, but they thought it was really important that I have it, so I have it. Interesting. Those who receive tension through their own mental nature will either react fiercely or they will assimilate the tension, one or the other. If they assimilate that tension, they're going to expand their consciousness and they will begin to see their vision, their life vision, what they're supposed to do. That would be like the capital P purpose that we read about in one of Twerkham's writings, The Purpose of Life. Those who respond to their creative tension through their emotional nature either react violently or go through a period of intense aspiration, purification, and transmutation. Your creative tension brings reaction, challenge, or progress and transformation. Thus, creative tension increases when we come in contact with the public. Creative tension increases when we come in contact with the public. A person of creative tension needs such a friction because the friction created between his tension and the reactions and responses of the various fields of life give him an opportunity and challenges him to strive toward higher dimensions and able to meet the expanding level of human life. Progress is secured by this spiritual and creative tension. Now, the point of tension created by your vision and by the response of your soul to the vision allows your soul to break his former identification on lower levels and allows you to step onto a higher level of identification with higher substance. This is done by evoking your fiery will latent within the soul. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes talking about other tensions. For example, you are charged with a great tension when you stand in the light of your solar angel. This is how you know that this is not your imagination. You know, when you are standing in the light of your solar angel, there is an incredible force of energy that takes place. When this takes place, then you make a decision to live in that light. This is when you move from your personal, selfish, self-centered life to the group life. It creates tension. We all know it does. Because for the first few years, the first few lifetimes, we're still going to battle, you know, ego versus the group life, the group soul. Until we finally awaken and we allow that soul now to really focus on the will of the substance of that particular plane. And in this case, it would be the higher mental body. Another kind of tension is experienced when you stand in the presence of your teacher. A person told me in the office a few weeks ago, "You're so intense." I think that's the fire. That's the fire of the teacher. Such a tension not only reveals to you the way you are, but also the way you can be in the future. We are told that 1 minute of such a tension will be enough to create a total transformation of our life. And this would be the teacher with the capital T. But we must be worthy of it. Another kind of tension is experienced when we try to actualize our virtues and practice them in our daily relationships. So when a person gets used to such a tension, then a greater chance will be given to him or to her to stand in the fiery tension of the hierarchy. and of the center where the will of God is known. Another kind of tension is experienced when we meet greater responsibilities with higher level services. In such cases, usually the whole crystallization of the masses stands against us. And it starts out in gradient form. You, me, we must be intelligent, wise, and powerful enough to break such a barrier with the increasing spiritual tension of the divine will within our core. And as a group, we have experienced this, at some level of gradation. And some people in the group bend to the little wills of others, saying, but Jesus Christ, died for your sins. Are you a Bible-based church? They haven't awoken yet. I've mentioned this in the past where some who are on the spiritual path, when they become older and weaker, or they become very ill, their true belief system kicks in and they return to their childhood religion. It is because they didn't do their work. And doing their work is what I'm talking about today. They didn't release their human soul, in such a way that they could hear that inner guidance. Now they're still listening to that preacher, from their childhood. As we begin to break through these barriers, another breakthrough for us will be to enter into a higher field of tension, to expose ourselves to greater creative challenges. A person who does not feel a sense of responsibility works for a few hours a day, receives a few dollars, then buys things for his little pleasures and desires, like alcohol and drugs and so forth. He will be momentarily happy. A person of greater awareness has a greater sense of responsibility, and his position in life will be equal to his sense of responsibility. His position is the field, the whole magnetic sphere of his creative influence. As this field expands, his tension or her tension increases. His discipline increases, and his sense of responsibility makes him confront new challenges in new fields. See, we don't just sit in our comfortable chair, but we sit in an uncomfortable chair, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, so we can confront new challenges. Creative tension increases when we take the initiative to serve on greater and higher fields. Creative and spiritual tension must increase to exist. Progressively, our tension must increase, not only horizontally, but of course vertically as well. A human being is integrated and creative only through the tension of a plan, an idea, of a vision, or a direction. Every achievement is the result of a creative tension. Without tension, there is no progress. So all progress then is the result of tension. Helena Rourke, a great sage, says, a higher tension creates a new step of cosmic creativeness. The lives which the Spirit passes in low tension shed but meager light upon the earthly path. We value the tension of will, she says. We shall accept the affirmation of the true principle of life as the affirming of the chalice of fires. So in conclusion, each tension, each higher tension, then expands our consciousness. Higher tension comes into being when our soul climbs upon the ray of the monad, or the will of the true self. As our soul ascends, the consciousness or our awareness expands, and we step into a field of greater relationship with cosmos.